When I was a child, I spoke like a child, I thought like a child, I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I gave up childish ways. Welcome to Yesterday Was Easy. The verse I just read is from 1 Corinthians 13:11 and lays a foundation for much of what I hope to do with this show. What does it mean to speak, think, and reason like a child? Children live in the present. They are selfish and impulsive and act without considering future ramifications. They have no concept of the burden of obligation or responsibility or making sacrifices for those they love. Adults, on the other hand, should not only consider the here and now, but also look to the future. They should act selflessly and deliberately while simultaneously considering the future ramifications of their decisions. They should very intimately know what it is like to carry the burden of being responsible for themselves and for others, and they should embrace the idea of sacrificially loving those under their care. Adults should be able to process information, weigh their options, and value long-lasting end results more than immediate and temporal gratification. An entire sermon could be preached on this verse alone, producing numerous applications, but for the purpose of this show, I want to focus on one aspect. There is a cultural cancer that has infected the church and is spreading like wildfire. This type of cancer is called acute childish waistoma and needs to be surgically removed as quickly as possible if we are to see the survival of the church and our culture. Having spent the last 13 plus years of my life counseling men week in and week out, I can experientially attest to this. Now, I do believe Christ promised that the gates of hell will not prevail against the church, and that this enemy will be placed under his feet, which means that this cancer will eventually be removed from the face of the earth. But the point I want to make is that this infection of childish thinking has prevented men from acting responsibly and maturely. It has caused grown men to never leave their mother's basements, forever lost in a fake world of false realities, perpetually seeking one temporal and fleeting pleasure after another. Children have few responsibilities, while men have a great number of responsibilities. Postponing the giving up of childish ways also allows men to prolong life absent from obligation. The refusal to put away childish things has severely stunted the growth of spiritual maturity in untold numbers of men within the church. It saddens me to see a constant barrage of Christian men who either greatly struggle or flat out refuse to put this childish mindset to death and adopt a biblically masculine mindset. Not only has it stagnated spiritual growth in our families and in our children, but also the effectiveness of Christ's bride in our increasingly ungodly culture. Far too many Christian men have grown incredibly comfortable allowing the culture to literally go to hell, while they take comfort in their bunkers of ease and irresponsibility. Childish thinking has resulted in laziness and cowardice, and far too much time reveling in fleeting moments of entertainment instead of participating in long-lasting tilling of the earth. Rather than men actively practicing the dominion mandate in a real attempt to subdue God's creation, they are actively attempting to take dominion over their golf games or the latest PlayStation game or games at the local CrossFit gym. Now, I'm not at all saying that we are not allowed to ever play or rest or exercise. In fact, God has given us a day of rest, and we even find our Sabbath in Christ himself. And further, I would even argue that we as men should be doing all we can to preserve our bodies for as long as we can for the sake of our families. But I am saying that there should be a hierarchy of things that come before we rest. And if placed on a scale, our work should far outweigh our play. In actuality, they should not even balance each other out. God, work, and our families should all take precedence over play. If at any point childish ways replace any of these, you have a problem. You have a cancer growing inside of your heart and you need to cut it out immediately. Far too many times I have seen weekly golf and softball games or an obsessive love of virtual fantasy placed on the mantle of responsibilities. Sadly, I have oftentimes seen men who can barely provide for their families or maybe even depend on their wives to do so, spend large portions of their income on childish things like tobacco, drugs, and alcohol, or even worse, on porn and gambling. It breaks my heart to see grown men who have wives and children waste countless hours on the false reality of video games. If you are one of these men, to you I say, grow up by giving up these childish ways. And just to be clear, I am not saying that we as men cannot play golf or softball or video games, nor drink beer and whiskey, nor smoke cigars. None of these things are inherently evil and should all be enjoyed to the glory of God. But I am saying that any of these things or anything like them take antecedence over your role as head of your home. They are idols and need to be put to death. Just as Gideon tore down his father's Asherah pole, so should we tear down these idols and rebuild them in a way that glorifies God. Worship does not just occur corporately during a Sunday church service, but occurs daily in everything that we do. If our priorities do not reflect God's will and intentions for how we should live our lives, then we are daily participating in false worship of man-made gods. If at any point any of your God-ordained duties of priest, prophet, provider, or protector is replaced with prepubescent player, you have a serious problem, and it's high time you give up your childish ways and act like a man. Priests represent their people before God through prayer. Prophets represent God before their people through the reading of His Word. Providers make sure the needs of their people are met. And protectors ensure the safety and well-being of their people. Prepubescent players play all the time. They only represent themselves before God. The God they actively represent is one of comfort. Their wives or their parents are the providers, and the only thing they sacrificially protect is the fattening pleasure of continued ease and complacency. C.S. Lewis once said, "When I became a man, I put away childish things, including the fear of childishness and the desire to be very grown up. Putting away childish things means putting to death the fear of responsibility and embracing the burden of obligation. Yesterday was easy. Give up childish ways. Stay hard."